Een hartelijk applaus voor Mike Ledonne en Vincent Herring. Now, gentlemen, since how long do you know each other?
Let me answer that. Okay. We were playing a concert a few years ago, and I looked at Mike, and I said, do you realize the first time we did a gig together was with Benny Goodman?
Wow.
Now, this was a long time ago, and Mike looked at me like I was crazy, and then I told him the exact day. Mike used to play as a member of Benny Goodman's band, and I was in a U.S. military band, and we did a concert and had Benny Goodman as a guest at Lincoln Center, and Mike was on that concert, and that was the first time we played together. Didn't play much after that for many years, but that was the first time, and I'm going to make a guess that that was probably 1980, 81 or 82.
Right, right. Do you remember this? Or you look at you?
Oh yeah, I remember playing with Benny Goodman.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I remember the concert. I didn't remember that Vincent was there though.
Right.
Yeah.
No. That's how it goes. And then later, when did you? Because you play often together, you were guests on each other's albums, and so when did it start to really head on between you two?
I would say because of my gig at Smoke that I've been doing on organ for every Tuesday for the past 19 years.
Yeah.
But I used to see Vincent all the time because I'm a huge Cedar Walton fan. So I used to go see Cedar, and Vincent would be playing with Cedar, and then I was lucky to get him to come up and play with the organ band. So he's done a lot of gigs with me that way, and then we've started working together since then. So that was 2000, I guess, when we started really playing together.
Yeah. Mike, I know that your father had a music store.
That's right. LeDonne's Music Box.
Sorry?
LeDonne's Music Box.
Music Box.
Yeah.
And
Bridgeport, Connecticut.
is that the first time where you, in the store, met the Hammond organ?
No, I didn't meet the Hammond organ. I was playing a Farfisa organ when I was 10 at my dad's store, and I had a little Leslie speaker, and I had a band that was basically doing like James Brown kind of music.
Right.
And then when I was and I always wanted a Hammond organ though, and I used to hear it on records, and you know, finally when I was 14, I saw one in the newspaper. It was part of what they call a repossession sale, which is when you can't pay for it, they come and grab it back.
Yeah.
So it's cheap. So I talked my dad into buying it for me, and he went and got it and put it in our basement.
Okay, because you were already, you liked the Hammond organ.
I loved the Hammond organ on in any record. I didn't care if it was a pop record, a soul record, a jazz record. I just loved the sound of the organ. And then my father was a jazz musician, so he had Jimmy Smith records, and that was really my introduction to hearing jazz on the organ at an early age. And I put the B3 downstairs and started trying to copy Jimmy Smith.
Yeah, well, talking about Jimmy Smith, I have a recording from Rotterdam in 1971 of Jimmy Smith. Let's look at it. Yes, come on. Oh no. Yes. It's a Newport Jazz Festival before North Sea Jazz. failing that, you can find it on YouTube. Actually, the horn players you saw coming on the stage were Illinois Jacquet, James Moody, Art Farmer, and Clark Terry. Roy Haynes was behind the drums.
Wow.
And but how hard is it not to, how hard is it to avoid being a copy of Jimmy Smith, or shouldn't you try at all? Or?
No, you always try. You can't do it though. That's the problem. So you find your own way.
Yeah.
But he's in there. There's for sure any organ player.
Yeah.
It has to pay a debt to Jimmy Smith. He's the king.
And actually, Jimmy Smith, he uses a certain setting on the Hammond organ.
That we still
that
use.
is-
That we
that is
still
his
use.
sound.
He found those sounds. I don't know how he did it, because before him it was Wild Bill Davis, who played more of a big band style with all the stops out. And he never played that Jimmy Smith sound. And it's funny because he was the king.
Yeah.
Wild Bill was the king before Jimmy. But once Jimmy came along, Wild Bill was just king of what Wild Bill did.
Is it
But
possible-
Jimmy was influenced by Wild Bill too. That's the thing.
Is it possible to demonstrate the difference on the Hammond? Or is it
Sure.
not that, are you then messing up your settings? Because the thing is that there are hundreds of settings possible, and then this Jimmy Smith setting is what...
The Jimmy
actually,
Smith setting
from
is what
then on,
most people
everybody's
use
doing.
as their, they use as their primary sound. And this is the sound. Wait, that's wrong. So that's a more mellow, nice, like a voice. Sounds like a voice. But Wild Bill was... So that's the difference.
Yeah. And what is your, do you have your favorite setting that you...
Both of those.
Both of those? Okay.
And
Okay.
others.
Okay, good. Mr. Herring, Mike's parents had a music store. What did your parents do?
They didn't have a music store. Let's see, my mother is a polyphlomist, separates red and white blood cells and draws blood, and she's retired now. And my dad was a farmer.
Right. So, how did you get into this saxophone thing?
Well, my parents were divorced at an early age, and we moved, my mom and I moved to California, and she just wanted to keep me occupied. And she believed, as I believe now, that music should be a part of your education. Not that everyone's going to be a professional musician or even very good, but it should be a part of your education. And so I originally planned to play trumpet. She didn't care what I played, as long as I played something.
Right.
And I went into the band to play trumpet, and I looked at the band director's lip, and he had some kind of infection. And I asked him, what did he play? And he said, trumpet. So that's how I went to the saxophone.
Yeah.
And here I am.
All right. And you played with many iconic bands from the jazz history. When was the moment that you realized, like, okay, I'm up to this, was there a year or a couple of gigs where you felt, okay, now I'm into it?
No, that's not the way it happened. I was in college studying something else, and I started doing more and more jobs, and one thing led to another, and I had some ability, but I was lacking in some of the skills necessary to really play the music that I loved and enjoyed, and I never really thought of it as a profession. And basically, as I got better, I got to do more interesting jobs, and I still haven't decided to do it as a profession. It just kind of happened.
Yeah. Well, when we talk about you and your instrument, but also your playing, then I think from the same festival in Rotterdam, the same festival this band played. I hope this will work better than the previous video. It should be coming on. Yeah. Look it up on YouTube. On the same festival, Dave Brubeck with Jerry Mulligan and also Charles Mingus. So, but also this band with George Duke on the keys and Roy McCurdy and Walter Booker. Yeah. Cannonball was a huge inspiration for you, but then actually when Cannonball deceased, passed away, you went into the band of his brother Ned, who we just saw.
Yeah,
you
well,
played really a lot together.
Wasn't quite that close in time.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of what happened.
How was it to really like, because I can imagine you watched his band many times with his brother, and then suddenly you are on that spot with these musicians around you.
Well, let's see, my mom was a jazz fan, so I grew up listening to music, and like even when I'm playing with Mike, some of these sounds I grew up hearing, even if I didn't know what it was. It's just somehow immersed in my DNA. It's just something I was brought up with. And so with the music of Cannonball and Adderley, it was also a part of my childhood and was something I was really into. And just by chance, I was, I had a job selling software early in the 80s. This was pretty interesting, and I wasn't fired. I was laid off,
Right.
and which was a good thing. And I received unemployment, and I was playing with some bands on the streets in New York City.
Mm-hmm.
And Walter Booker just happened to come by and hear me,
Right.
and he said to me, "You sound like a little bit like Cannonball." And I said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah, you know Cannonball's music?" I said, "Of course I know Cannonball's music." And he invited me to come up to his apartment. And so I went over his apartment, and we played through some of those songs. And then he called Nat on the phone, and he couldn't reach Nat, and he said, "I want you to come play with Nat." And so Nat was playing somewhere in town. Actually, it was at a club called Sweet Basil's, and I went down to Sweet Basil's, and of course, Bookie had been singing my praises and asked Nat to let me sit in. And so I sat there all night, and Nat said, "Oh man, I forgot all about you. I'm sorry about that." I said, "It's okay, I'll be back tomorrow."
All right.
And I just came back because I enjoyed the music, and so the second night, he decided, okay, I better let this kid play a little bit. And I played, not that I played great, but I think he enjoyed my enthusiastic attitude and outlook on things. And it's just so happened that the saxophone player that was playing with him couldn't make an engagement down in Florida. And so Nat called me and asked me if I was available to do it. I said, well, whatever I was doing, I'm not doing it anymore, and yes, I can make it. And so that was the first time I worked with Nat. And it just so happened that we hit it off as friends more than anything. And so instead of coming right back to New York, I drove with him to his home in Florida, and I stayed there for a few days, and we just talked and had so much fun just talking about music. And
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
really my introduction to that.
Here's a picture of you together.
Yeah.
Talking about the lip thing, by the way.
You know, that's an interesting, let me tell you about that photo and the reason that's there. This is in the Netherlands, right?
Yeah, this is a picture by Frans Gellekens.
Okay.
That's a photographer, yeah.
We were playing in a club in Germany. And in Germany, it was a small club, and the guy says, "You don't need a mic." And that's it. I need a mic. And he said, "You don't need a mic. No, nobody uses mic in here." And Nat said, "I need a mic." And he finally, because Nat wouldn't shut up about it, he put a mic there, but he didn't turn it on. So now, in order to be heard in the audience, he has to stress himself. So to the club owner, "Oh, he sounds great." But in reality, the physical exertion that he has to use to produce the sound is strenuous. And so I have a similar kind of thing where, you know, people say, "Oh, your sound's so big, you don't need a mic." Well, they don't realize that in order to produce that sound, it's very physical. So Nat played this concert, and I didn't have a mic. And the next day, when he took his horn out to play, he said, nothing would come out.
Wow.
And so he couldn't play. And
Yeah.
we were in the middle of a tour. So, I mean, it was terrible. And so he would fake like he was playing.
Yeah.
And I would play, and then I would solo, and other guys, he never soloed
man.
nothing. He would sing a song. He couldn't play. And later we found out that he had something called Bell's palsy, which put him out of commission for a couple of months where he couldn't play. And it was from physically straining himself to produce a sound because sound engineer would not give him what he needed.
Yeah. And actually, you played with Freddie Hubbard, and he had the same thing, more or less, with his lip.
Freddie's injury was different.
Yeah.
But I'm glad I had a chance to hear both of them play and sound really great. And Mike and we were talking about how lucky we are that we had a chance to hear some of these iconic musicians at their peak when they were really playing great. And we think that's one thing that young players today are missing, which is, for Mike and myself, there were guys that were so far above everybody else that it just gave you a different perspective. Like now, you know, they're great players, but no one is just, you know, out of the category.
Frightening.
It's just, it's different. So, you know, it's like, it just gives you a different perspective on the music. Yeah.
Do you ever feel lonely that all this, like Nat isn't there anymore, and so many of the players are not playing anymore or are not there, and you are like not still the keepers of the flame of this type of music.
I was so close with Milt Jackson and Bob Cranshaw and Mickey Roker and Cedar Walton and Bobby Hutcherson. So, it's not lonely, I wouldn't say, but it's like losing your family.
Yeah.
You know, you never forget them and you always miss them.
Yeah.
Like that.
Be a part of you.
Yeah. What I understood from the drummer Hans Braber is that you don't make set list.
I can't seem to do it. I can't even think about, I don't know what I'm going to play till I sit down and hit the first note, and then that's the way I do it.
Yeah, you don't know yet, so you can't tell us what's going to be the first tune.
No, no idea. We'll find out.
Okay, we'll see you in 10 to 15 minutes.
Okay.
Here on the stage, and thank you so much
for
this talk. Thank you.